Good evening. I'm Michael Landman, and I head up the Graduate Performance Program with the Department of Theater. Thank you for joining us for Act 1 of the Laramie Project tonight. Tomorrow night at 7:30, please join us for Act 2, and Saturday night, 7:30, Act 3. I'm delighted to present to you the production team, which we're going to have a conversation about their process. I'll let them introduce themselves. We hope you'll join us to get some insights about how they came to work on the Laramie Project. So if you could please introduce yourselves, we'll start with the director.
Hi everyone, my name is Juan. I'm a second year MFA student in directing program, and I am a director of the Laramie Project.
Hi, my name is Callie Lithgow, and I'm a first year MFA candidate, and I designed the costumes for this production.
Hi everyone, my name is Ethan Lubera. I am a first year MFA candidate in scenic design, and I was the scenery consultant for the show.
Hey guys, my name is Zach McJunkins. I'm a first year MFA lighting design candidate, and I was the lighting consultant for the actors in the show.
Hello, I'm Jackson. I'm a second year undergrad, and I was the sound designer for the show.
So thank you all for joining us, and congratulations on the first part of opening night to you and to the cast. Appreciate all your work. I wonder, just to help people understand if they're not involved in the theater yet, if you could each just talk about what you do. What does a director do? What does a designer do? And Juan, let's start with you. What does a director do?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to go into the directing 101 now for you, but in short, to me, a director will translate the text in a certain point of view to present that to the audience about the play. So different directors will have different point of view about one text and deliver different messages for different audience. So yeah, that's what director do.
Thank you. Callie, let's jump to costuming.
Well, as a costume designer, to me the big part of my job is about character and really analyzing the script and the characters and understanding them, and then translating those ideas to a visual medium in exploring what they would wear and how we can communicate important information about the character to the audience via their appearance.
Thank you. Hey, Ethan, what can you tell us about scenic designers and what they do?
Hi, so when I look at a scenic design for a show, I am primarily focusing on the environment. So the spaces that the characters inhabit, the spaces that the characters live in, and then the different things that those pieces mean. As you can see, like in my background, I have a couple different flower paintings. I have a sunflower mirror behind me, and all of these things in my space say something about myself. And so, as a scenic designer, it's my job to then take all of those inspirations within the text, and then bring those characters' spaces to life.
Thank you, Zach. Tell us about lighting design.
All right, so the lighting designer's most obvious job is to turn on some lights and make sure you can see everything that's going on stage. But some of the subtler things we do is things like helping direct your attention on the stage to where we want you to look at that moment, and to help set the mood overall for the scene that we're using. And then you can also use lights to help sculpt the actors out of the space, so they look more three-dimensional and stand out instead of looking a little flatter and two-dimensional, which is something you may want to go for. But yeah, that's the gist of it.
Thank you. And Jackson, sound designer.
As a sound designer, I try to create a soundscape that will either enhance an atmosphere or a moment in the show. So I can either, with an atmosphere, like say we're in the field moment and I want this wind to play in the background, so you really feel like you're out there where there's just wind blowing through the grass and it's this big open space. Now, with a moment, I would enhance it with something like an underscore. So in the fire side, I had this like sort of 90s hip hop instrumental playing in the background to really make you feel like you're once again in that space, in that moment in the show.
Thank you. So, Juan, you talked about having a point of view, and you met with your designers, and you must have had something that was important to you about the Laramie Project that you wanted to share, some aspect of the story. Could you share with us what your point of view is?
Well, yeah. When I first know that I will go on with this play for this season, at that time I didn't have much connection to this play, to the story. And then, you know, a lot of things coming, like the pandemic, the quarantine, and our production changed to Zoom production. And at that time, I experienced something too. Like during the pandemic, I experienced a discrimination towards Asian people, because there's an assumption between, you know, like Asian and COVID-19. So I'm going out, I'm wearing a mask, and immediately I receive like hate look from people in me, and no longer after that we coming with George Floyd incident. So I just thinking that the Laramie Project, with its message and what it wants to tell us today, it needs to be told again in this context, in this situation, in this society, and that's why I really want to bring this story to the audience. Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask each of the designers if you could take us on a little bit of a journey through your process of, you know, reading the play, talking to Juan, talking to each other. And I know at least a couple of you might have some images you could share. And I'm going to start with Callie. If you could give us an insight into how you worked on the Laramie Project. And you're muted.
Well, as I'm getting everything all set up and going, the first thing that any designer works on when they're producing a show is they read the play over and over and over again. It's a matter of first experiencing it the way that the audience would experience it, and then you start to go through and you study things like who's wearing what, and what time of year is it, what place are they in, and you take all that information and you start to compile it, and you end up, here we go, with first of all a lot of spreadsheets. I have piles and piles of documents of me analyzing the characters and organizing who appears in what scene and how they belong with what character, and what characters get played by more than one person, and so their costumes have to match, that sort of thing. It's a real organization task. But once that's all sorted, you dive into the research, which was a very interesting thing for this show because it involves a lot of real people. I mean, here we have Lee Fondakowski, who's a member of the company, some of the officers that were involved, Kathy Connolly, one of the professors. I mean, I'll click through these pictures, but the main takeaway here is that they're real people who we know exactly what they looked like and what they did when the events of these stories happened. So it's a matter of, do we recreate them exactly? Do we try to extract the spirit of what they are and create it on a different level? And then you add the element of casting, where people are playing people that don't really look like the original person, or we have one actor playing more than one thing, and it just becomes, that's where the creative element comes in, is taking real events and making it a theatrical experience. So, for example, I begin with colors. I took this old postcard of a street in downtown Laramie. I actually visited Laramie on my way out to Fayetteville, and it still looks very much like this. And there's a certain color story that comes through about in these Western towns that's very muted and dusty, but still colorful and like wide and open, which I really love. And so this picture exemplified that for me, and I pulled out colors here that were I to design the costumes, I would try to stay within this family to present a sort of unified front, and that would apply to set and lighting as well, since it's all a part of the same stage picture. And then I start to compile the actual costume elements. Here I've laid out some examples of how I would purchase items for the show. As you can see, the same elements will appear multiple times. In a live production of the show, the actors would not leave the stage and all the costume elements would be out, and they just change from person to person. So in a live production, it would be important to me to use as few pieces as possible, and have them mean different things on different people, or have them perform different functions, whether it's a jacket tied around the waist or over the shoulders or worn properly or with pins on it, that sort of thing. Letting the costumes transform the actors in the blink of an eye. So that's how I would produce the show, is by buying pieces or pulling pieces and making them as flexible as possible. And as an example of that, I've got what's usually the last pre-production stage of costume design, which is renderings. This is an example of one of the characters in the show. The actress Anna plays 6 different characters, more I think across the show, but this is a selection of them. And so we would have this sort of the same base piece for everyone, and then things get added or taken away. Hair goes up or down. Just simple, quick things, but they create a lot of contrast between the characters. It's important to be able to tell them apart in the blink of an eye, because they transform so quickly. And that's my main focus when we translated it for Zoom, was creating contrast between all those characters. So were this a true to stage production, then we would go through the process of building things and compiling them and fittings and all that. But for Zoom, that meant going through the actors' closets and customizing costumes from there. But yeah, that's been my process for the whole show. It's a unique experience, but a really good one, and I think gives me a lot of examples of how costume design works.
So your work is beautiful, Callie, and very thoughtful and imaginative. How long have you been designing costumes?
I discovered costume design, I think my second year of my undergrad. I mean, I've been a theater person my whole life, but I didn't really think about design until the opportunity was presented to me in like a theater for non-majors class. And I realized that there's this whole other creative side to theater besides acting that is really satisfying.
Wow, that's great. Really appreciate all that you shared here.
Thanks.
Very much. Yeah. We're going to jump ship to chat with Ethan, who's our scenic designer. And I know authenticity was important to you. Could you tell us about that, or anything that you might want to share visually would be great?
Yeah. So for me, my design process and how I worked through this was completely unlike anything I have ever done. And that was really wonderful in a lot of different ways. It allowed for a lot of growth in this. And for me, this show was simply about authenticity. I saw these environments that I originally, before everything was like, okay, we're gonna do this as Zoom, I had been thinking about the different ways that we utilize performance spaces. This show is uniquely set up like Callie mentioned, every actor is always on stage. And so it is, in the script, it's typically described as being a performance space. It's nowhere. But for me, after this summer of isolation and all of the injustices and the protests that have happened because of the police brutality, I thought that it was a time that we could take a unique stance on what a performance space is. So for me, if I were to like put this on a stage, I would have liked you to walk in to the theater and essentially feel like you are in Laramie or you are in your downtown. What does it feel like when you see all of these, and you're like, especially if you when you watch the second and third act, you're gonna see a lot of these things really begin to hit home. And I think that when you take such an emotional piece and you put that in your hometown, it asks people to think. And so so when I started this process, let me share my screen. Can you see this?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I can't.
Well, it says you've started screen sharing, but there it is. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So when I started this process, I started off with reading the text and looking for things that were important to me. And then that goes into research. So when I talk about bringing onto the stage actual downtown Laramie, these are my research images. I think that it is a unique picture. When you walk into it's a unique feeling when you walk into a space and you feel at home. And then when the text and the meat of the story is not one that is likable, or it is not one that you want to attach to, it allows you to think. And so that was mainly what I was going for. And so you don't have to read all of this, but this show is often described as being documentary theater. And that, like Callie said, like these are real people. And these places where these things happened are everywhere. And I would like to then bring onto stage a real place. And because I think that's a really important to what we're going through right now.
Thank you, Ethan, very much. Hey, Zach, is there anything you might be able to share about lighting and your process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so similar to Callie and Ethan, the first thing I do as a lighting designer is read the play over and over and over. And after I've read the play a thorough amount of times, I take the script and break down each scene based on location and time of day and time of year, whether it's indoors or outdoors, just to kind of collect as many facts as we can about the script and the different scenes. And then after that, I start pulling inspiration photos, and they can be anything from pictures of lighting that I think is interesting. It doesn't even need to be a complete composition. It can be just certain things about the picture that I like the way the shadows fall, or it doesn't even need to be lighting related necessarily. It could be a picture that evokes a mood that I want to evoke with the lighting, or yeah, but here I actually have some inspiration photos that I pulled. I can get these up here. All right, can you guys see that?
Yes.
All right. So this was for the scenes in the breakfast joint, and I really, it just feels very breakfasty to me. I really liked the bright sunlight coming in through the windows over here, and then the nice warm light bouncing off the tables, and move that out of the way. And I've recreated that on my very considerate friend and colleague, Austin. He's modeled for me. And so we have a similar look based on this photo where he's got that warm light on the right side of his face and then a much brighter backlight that helps him kind of stand out from the set, if there was a set. And this one was for the inn, and I just really loved the coziness of these photos, and this one especially. And on the one on the bottom, which some of you may recognize as actually the Grand Hall in the Hogwarts set for the Harry Potter movies. I really like the way these shadows fall. It feels very warm and cozy and textured, and so I don't know if this is in the way for you guys like it is for me. And so I've recreated that one as well over here. And at the end, I'll show you all of the pictures side by side so you can kind of see and compare them. But it's not quite as bright. You've still got that warm light on his right side, and on his left side is from the camera's perspective. On his left side, there's a fill and then a little bit of a nice light blue backlight. And so for the overcast and snowy scenes where it's set outside, obviously, it's kind of, when you're outside in the snow, the lighting is very stark and white and diffuse and coming from every direction. And so I created a similar effect here with a much cooler light on Austin. And then lastly, we have the golden hour scenes. And so not all lighting, the majority of lighting is going to be very natural, but not always. There are a couple moments in every play you can add a sort of a more dramatic scene where you can evoke a certain mood. And so even though you wouldn't see these colors in the real world, at least not in this setting, it gives the illusion that he's standing outside and there's light hitting him on one side of his face and the other side is cast in shadow, but on the stage he's still clearly illuminated. And so there's all of them side by side.
I happened to see these yesterday, and I mentioned to Zach how useful it is for your team of designers and Juan to be able to take a look at what the lighting might look like even before the production. Because typically with lighting, we don't get to see it until we hit very late in our collaborative process, something we call tech. We start to technically put all these aspects of the play together. And here you are already showing us what it could look like, which is terrific. Thank you.
Now, that's a dangerous precedent I've set, I think.
Right? Our expectations are very high now for every piece you ever do, Zach. So thank you. Jackson, you probably don't have visuals to share, but right? Because it's all from the oral perspective. How did you work on this project, and anything you want to share about working on Zoom as well?
Yes. So as any other designer, I started by reading the show until I had a thorough understanding of the actual content. And then I was actually a late addition as a designer to the show. So pretty soon after that moment, I met with Juan directly, and we discussed what we wanted the design to look like or sound like for the show. And after that moment really, it consisted of discussing like what moments we wanted to have underscored, what practical effects we needed, which are more in the other acts, what music choices we kind of wanted, or the feeling for the music between acts, and things of that nature. And then after that, I opened up a spreadsheet on my computer and I went to the script and I went through moment by moment, writing down cue numbers and then writing down what I wanted each cue to sound like. And then that's when I went through, found my effects, edited them until they sounded good for the production. And then I put them into a QLab folder where you can program it. So with the click of a button, it'll play a sound, stop a sound, play a sound, stop a sound until you get to the end of the show. So after that moment, I would send it back, make sure it sounded good and everything like that. Now for Zoom, the issues that come up with Zoom is the fact that with sound, you really want to make sure that things are enhancing the moment, but also are necessary to enhance it. You don't want to just put sound where it doesn't need to be, because that can really muddy up how the actors sound, and you really need to hear the dialogue more than an underscore. So if I'm going to put an underscore in a scene, it really needs to add something to that scene to justify its inclusion into the show. So
I want to give you accolades. You're the only undergraduate student in this group. And how did you happen to become a sound designer? You said you joined late.
So I've been interested in sound design for quite a few years now, ever since my junior year of high school. And it was the first experience I ever really had in the theater world. And I fell in love with it right then. So I've continued up until now pursuing it. And so a few weeks ago, Sean Irish, our technical director, he asked me if I wanted to join the show. And of course I said yes, because I was so excited to be an undergrad, finally getting to get a jump start on the design world.
That's great. And just because we actually have someone else who's our technical director, Sean's actually the head of lighting design and the head of design.
Exactly.
So, okay, great. Hey guys, I want to ask you, I know for sound, it may not have been this way, but the actors are very much involved in manipulating their technical elements and costumes in ways that are not like live theater at all. Could you talk about that? And then I see I have a question from one of our audience members, the chair of our department, Michael Ria, which is, what do you miss most about being in a theater instead of doing it on Zoom? And maybe we could touch both as we go around. So working with the actors in this unique way, and also the difference between live theater and what you might miss having done it on Zoom. Who would like to jump on in? Ethan, go for it.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead. So for me, it was it was really nice. For me, it was a nice experience to work with the actors as our technicians. I had this idea in mind that these actors are working as our technicians, and so it was how do I not communicate and not communicate my specific choices, but how do I communicate what feelings I can get from them? Because I know that everyone has their restraints. When we walk into an actual theater space, we close the door every night. And we have some kind of personal detachment from the actual location, but many of these actors are presenting the show from their rooms. And so it has a different feeling when it comes to the scenery. And so it just started with a conversation. I was like, I would go with each of the actors and I would have meetings, and I said, listen, I don't want you to feel that you have to compromise your space in any way. This is your personal space, and it is our job to respect that. We are asking a unique challenge from these actors to kind of give up their space for a second. And I'm thankful for all of them. I have enjoyed meeting and working with each of them, but it's just about it. For me, it was just about communication. It was how can I communicate with them that we need to be in a different location, but we can't be. So talking with them about how they can adjust their camera angles, and how behind me you see these two paintings, but if I just rotate my camera a little bit, well, this tells a different story. You see different things. If this setting is different and Callie has given them new clothes to wear, well, then they feel like a different person. And so it kind of takes authenticity, because it is my faculty advisor who asked the question, and I know he's watching. I hate to say it, but it felt like one of the easier designs that I've ever done, because I was making and crafting already made spaces. We didn't have to build walls to put up in a theater. They're around us. Most of the actors had already been in rooms that were decorated, so let's use it. And so it was a really nice creative way, and to work with the actors as my technicians. And so, yeah. And the thing that I really miss the most about doing live productions, as opposed to Zoom, is the feeling when you, for me being in Zoom, it's harder for me to feel the same team connection. when we're all in the same room and I sit in on the first read through, or we have an actual presentation where we come in and meet all the actors and say, hi, I'm your scenic designer, and these are some of my things that I like. It gives them a different feeling for the world, and that those initial meetings and those interactions are really what I miss the most.
Thank you for all that. And I realize the people watching tonight may not be fully aware that we are all in different spaces. All the actors were in different spaces. Some of them are in different states. So there's never been a rehearsal where people were in the same room together in this whole process, except in the Zoom room. So there we are. Callie, anything you'd like to respond to?
Yeah, I mean, similarly to Ethan, it was a totally unique experience because ordinarily the relationship is very black and white in that I tell the actors what to wear and they wear it on stage. But in this situation, I can't know every piece of clothes that the actors have, and I can't make anything for them or buy anything for them. So instead of being I'm telling you what to wear, it became more of a conversation where it was like, this is how I see this character. How do you see this character? And in a way, sort of teaching a little bit of costume design in that this is what I want you to think about for this character. Are they outside or inside? How old are they? Are they married? That sort of thing. And then they were able to come to me with ideas, and then we could work something out together. So I really loved the collaborative way of that, because I know that can be a conflict sometimes in the theater where a costume designer will, bring a costume to a fitting and the actor goes, oh, my character wouldn't wear that. And you have totally conflicting understandings of how that person is. So it was really nice to be able to do it together. But of course, I do miss being able to dream up an idea from scratch and have a more unified picture and idea where I can, pull all the strings myself. And the impact that being in the same room as a performer can have. One of the big things that separates theater from film and any other entertainment genre is that you're experiencing it at the same time as 50 or 100 or 500 other people, and feeling that all at the same time is really powerful and different. So I really miss that. So I hope that you could all feel a little bit of connection with your fellow audience members, even though you couldn't see them.
Thank you. Just one quick follow-up. Do you think that experience of collaborating with the actors so intimately has maybe in any way changed how you're going to work when you are able to design the whole?
I think so. I mean, every production is different, and so it's not always possible to communicate with the actors early enough in the process that it happens, but I do think that that's important, and a good way to do that is usually at the beginning of the process. There is a big, all the designers and actors and director attend the first few rehearsals, and they do table work where they just talk about what the play means to them and what the characters mean to them, and they sort of unravel the text. And I think having that sort of meeting and being on the same page about that can really help unify the production as it goes along.
Thank you. Hey, Zach, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, so for this show, I was more of a lighting consultant than I was a lighting designer, because we can't go to their houses and help them with their setups, and we're working with any of the fixtures that they currently have in their setup. And so after Ethan had taken them and decided where they were going to be in their rooms for the different characters, I talked to each of them and helped them set up their lighting in such a way that it was as even as possible in all of the different locations. And we learned pretty quickly that lighting for a camera can be quite challenging, because cameras they're a little moody when it comes to lighting. And so it was really interesting, but it was great working with all of the actors. And the thing I miss most about being in a theater is similar to Callie, is the audience. There's nothing quite like it to me to be in a room you know, 100 or 200 people, and you can feel the electricity in the air. You can feel the audience sync up after a certain point. They start to almost breathe in unison. You can feel their focus shift from location to location, and when that one moment hits and they all kind of sit up straight in their chairs, you know, there's nothing quite like it.
Thank you. Tomorrow night after Act 2, we'll be having a chat with the cast, and I'm really eager to talk to them about that lack of audience response. That's, my God, you know, they're doing it from their imagination of what the response might be. And just to let everyone know, Saturday night, we're going to bring the designers back and the cast. So we're all going to visit with you after the show. We hope you join us for that. Jackson, anything you want to add about working this way with the actors?
So I'm kind of in a unique position, I'd say, as the sound designer, because unlike the other designers, my work is very similar to what I'd be doing on the stage. So for the most part, what I do is the same as if we had done this production on a stage in the actual room. Where it really, I'd say, differs is the fact that, and this is also where what I miss comes into play, is I miss being in the actual stage, in the actual theater, in the room with the sound. Because while I can make something sound good on my computer and get it to what I feel good with putting out there, I can't necessarily know that it's going to sound good on someone else's laptop with whatever speaker setup they're listening to it on. So I really lose that element of control over the sound once we do it through Zoom. I have to hope that it sounds good, because I can never be 100% sure. Even though it sounds good on my end, it might not sound good for the audience. And I really just don't want it to ruin their experience with understanding and enjoying the show.
Thank you. Juan, earlier today, you talked about the audience having a front row seat, unlike in the theater where some of us sometimes sit behind other people. Anything else that you, here we are all at our computer screens, we get a great view, and hopefully with good speakers, great sound. Anything you want to add about working on Zoom and what you might miss about working in live theater?
Well, yeah, of course that we are making theater, so our preference is like to be in the same room, in the stage, with lighting, with scenic, right? And yeah, what I miss most about theater is that human, you know, like real human in front of me. Because I think that we all in the same, we all agree that making theater is about working with human beings, about human beings, right? So it's obviously better if you have real figure in front of you and we together bonding into a team and together tell a story. However, Zoom also, you know, support and give me a lot of material to that I found it really suitable for this play. First of all, because this play is kind of documentary theater, which is the first play in this genre that I tried. So you can see that everybody up here in front of Zoom, like as if they are up here in front of a camera. Of course, they are in front of a camera, in which in which it gives us a sense of you know, a conversation, like somebody record them and play it during the interviews. And the interview is, which is the thing that this play is constructed on. So that's the first thing about Zoom. The second thing is, you know, so interesting that this play is about how we like stop judging each other. People have their own identity, and we need to respect that. We need to accept that, and everyone is different. And so one thing really interesting about Zoom is that whenever that your room is varied and various in design, you know, like big room, small room, multicolor room, rich or poor or something like that. In Zoom, you have the same frame. Like all of us have an equal frame. And that's so, I mean, that is a part of a discourse in which we all participate in this society and in this life as a human being like each other, right? And we shouldn't be treated as like labels, but we should be looked at human beings. So that's what I think Zoom really supportive in this. Yeah.
Thank you. That seems like an inspirational. You have more? I saw that, Jester. What?
Talk about the front seat. Yeah, that's what I want to say to like to the audience. Like the audience go to the real stage. They have the front seat, the back seat, right? They pay more money for the front. They pay less money for the back. But now with Zoom, you always have the front seat and the same distance with the screen. So with Zoom, everyone is equal. Yeah. That's what this play about.
Thank you. And thank you all for really illuminating conversation about what you do as designers and collaborators. Sure appreciate your work on the show and your time here. Just to remind the audience that tomorrow at 7:30, we have Act 2 of the Laramie Project. We'll follow that with a conversation with the cast. And then Saturday night at 7:30, Act 3. And that will be followed by a conversation with these fine artists and the cast. And we'll all get to explore together. So that'll be all for tonight. Thank you, and thank you for watching. Appreciate you. Good night, everybody.